Hey all, Southern Sage back again. Today we're going to talk about how to grow things in containers. So this is huge for anyone who doesn't have a lot of space. Or if you've been following along, we have my daughter's patio garden at her apartment in town at college in 5-gallon buckets, right? So containers don't need to be fancy. So the key is to understand how big of a container you need for whatever vegetable you want to grow, and then how are you going to keep it watered. So for that first point, if you go look at a seed packet, like you're shopping in garden centers this time of year, right? It's right after Mother's Day, things are going on sale. This is an excellent time to go get seeds. And it's still early enough to plant almost everything that you would grow in the summer here. On the back of that seed packet, it will tell you how far apart to either plant or thin the plants. It's usually 6 inches, 10 inches, 12 inches, 18 inches, something like that. That is how big, that is the minimum size of a container that you can use for that plant. So if you have a plant that says it needs 6 inches, thin to 6-inch spacing, you need at least a pot that is 6 inches around at the top and at least 6 inches deep. If your seed packet says thin to 12 inches or 18 inches, you need a 12-inch or an 18-inch pot that is at least 12 inches deep. So that's how you gauge, based on what you want to plant, how big a container do I need. Now that container can be anything. It can be a plastic Rubbermaid tote you got for 50 cents at a garage sale. It can be a milk jug for some things. Lettuces and radishes will go fine in the bottom of a plastic milk jug. In this case today, I'm going to be planting in an old wash tub that I got from a family member who was throwing it out and didn't want anything anymore. So really, anything you have. It does not have to be pretty nice pots. Although I really like pretty nice pots, and I do look for those secondhand because, pretty. Why not? So once you know how far apart things are, you can look at the size of your pot and figure out if you can do more than one thing. So a secret here, if you have a plant that says it needs more than a foot of spacing, so tomatoes, peppers, potatoes, there's a whole bunch of the bigger plants that need more than a foot. You can usually put little plants like lettuce or radishes around them as long as you have at least that 12 or 14-inch pot. So you can fudge things a little bit, is what I'm saying. Once you know, right, so I've got a container that's about 18 inches on a side, this wash tub is. I have 3 celery plants. Now celery is a 12-inch apart thing. I'm going to eke it a little, but I'm going to put a celery in each of 3 corners, so they're all about 12 inches apart. And then I have 2 basil plants. So the basils need to be 6 to 8 inches apart, and they're going to fill in that last corner and the center so that they are 6 to 8 inches from everything else, and the celeries just have to share a little bit with the basil, and otherwise they've got the space they need. So let's take a look at how I plant this, and then let's talk about water and how you're going to do that in July in Kansas. So down here, I think you guys can see that. I have my plants laid out, so I've got celery, celery, celery. And these are all newspaper pots, so you guys have seen me plant these before. Just pull off the ring, nestle the plant in. Now this pot is full of a mix of my garden soil and other stuff that I had left over from filling the big pots in the fountain. And some store-bought garden soil that I had to get this year since I didn't have my compost pile going last year. I just moved to this spot. So we're going to get these guys all nestled in here and happy. And then I'll come back and I'll water them in from the top to help them get settled. And all of these guys a couple of weeks from now are going to look amazing because they are all very constricted in their little newspaper pots. I should have planted these guys out a while ago. So now how do you keep this thing watered? So there's a couple of keys. So first is just staying on top of it every day in the growing season. And when it's really hot out, consider bringing your pots into a shady place in the hottest part of the day. Now, this requires you to actually be home and in a place where you can interact with them. So that isn't always possible, and I recognize that. Anything you can do to give them some shade in that hottest part, even for vegetables that say they want full sun, do not, in a container, want 100-degree full sun in Kansas. So just know that. Past that, you can get a little more sophisticated if you want to put say a clay pot waterer, or one of the pretty glass ones that you can fill up with water and tip down into the pot that will slowly drip water into that container for you. Both of those methods work well if you have a decent sized container. You can, on a container this size, use a full-on clay pot olla. So I'm going to talk about that tomorrow. So tune back in tomorrow and I'm going to go through all of what that's all about. The last thing I want to mention is the wicking bed concept. So I'll link in the notes for this to the video I did on how to build a wicking bed. They're usually a little bit bigger, but honestly you can make them in something as small as a Rubbermaid tub, and it's fine. And that is by far my favorite method of keeping things watered in July and August, and it is frankly the only thing that I've had really good success with it, other than this top watering thing, or bottom watering thing that I'm doing with the fountain here. And I will say, all of my previous iterations of that have just been kiddie pools that I stuck on the driveway. Nothing pretty or fancy like hot pink little kiddie pool with a whole bunch of pots in it, but it works a champ. So, those are all ways that you can keep your pots watered. For like a balcony, you can get the bigger plant trays and set your pot in it and fill the tray up with water, so that your pot has that constant 1 to 2 inches of water that it can pull up from the bottom. So all of these are strategies to get those potted plants through the heat of summer. Other than that, growing plants in pots is pretty sweet. You can move them around, they don't usually have a lot of weeds, they're taller, they're easier to get to, you've got super flexibility, you can make them gorgeous by adding in some extra flowers or some vining things, like be creative. And you can eat it. So how can you go wrong here, really? So I encourage all of you, grow something in a pot. Window box of lettuce was my first garden. So be careful, gardening is addictive, right? But whatever you can do, grow some food wherever you are. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you like it, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it to your friends, let them know what's going on. I really appreciate all of you that have already done that. So thanks, and we'll see you tomorrow.